Cool. Well, welcome to, what is it? What are we on? The 24th of March, I think, right? Yeah, March 24th. And yeah, today we're going to be talking about sampling. So if you've been following along, like I said, don't forget the synth stuff. It's super important. And yeah, Lewis, John is here. John is Techis. Oh, I see what you did there, John. I see what you did there. Techis 317. So yeah, that's John. Everybody say hi, John. Hi, John. All right, cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab out of here the sampling introduction PTF and download that just to make sure we've got that going on, just to make sure I have the largest version of it. There you go. Thanks, Andrew. Cool. You can take off the Steve. And sampling 2 and resampling. And what I've got here, it says the 23rd. Oh, it does say the 23rd. Thanks. Whew. That was almost a disaster. A disaster! But thank you. Awesome. Great. It's good to know y'all got my back. Oh, did I mess it up again? Oh, you know what? Sorry, Fitsum. It's right next to the D and it always just clicks it. Sorry about that. That's not me getting your name wrong. That's me typing poorly. Apologies. But thanks for seeing that, scouting it out. Okay, cool. All right, so we got that there. And what we're going to do with sampling stuff is we're going to talk about sampling in terms of samplers. I don't have my actual Akai MPC sampler here. It's in my home, and I'm not going to get it. But I do have my keyboard controller here, and I've got an Akai a Novation Launchpad here, and I've got some other stuff that I can use to control some samplers. So we're going to be talking about like hardware samplers. Unfortunately, I can't show you one in live, but I can show you pictures of them. And we're also going to be talking about software samplers. We're going to talk about like the art of sampling, like where it got started, how it works, like more kind of old school styles of sampling and how that used to work, and then modern day sampling and software and utilizing all the different software. I've got some really cool field recordings, and then also what I'm going to get into because of the situation we're in right now, what I'm also going to get into is using your iPad for stuff. And we're going to be using and talking about editing audio on your iPad so that you can actually use the iPad for, yeah, we're going to totally, yeah, I mean, sampling, sorry, Fitsum, you're saying, can you do a lesson where you show us how to sample records into Ableton? We're not going to be sampling records into Ableton, but I will show you how to sample audio files into Ableton. Records is just a matter of recording the record into Kilo, you're in John's class, right? Sorry, I'm laughing at Kilo. He says everything twice. It's like yeah, Kilo, Valentino, boom, yes sir, cool. So what was I saying? I was saying that we're going to be totally talking about Ableton Live. That's a big part of the sampling class, actually, is learning how to do stuff in Ableton Live, because it's sampling. Ableton Live is basically a sampling instrument DAW. It's the way you use it, and the way I use it is like that's how it works. So we're going to be talking about that, but I also want to get into something that we don't really do too much in class and normally, that is talking about sampling into your iPad and your iPhone and stuff. We do talk in class about recording stuff in your iPhone and how to get it into your computer, but I want to go deeper into sampling into your iPad and using the tools on your iPad, because everybody has an iPad that's taking the class. Everybody has an iPad or a phone, but you definitely have an iPad because you get them from us. So being able to utilize that will be really cool. It's not going to be today, but that's definitely going to be Today's what, Tuesday? So Thursday, it's going to be, Wednesday or Thursday. I'm not sure which day. Probably more Thursday. We'll get into that stuff. So that's what's in store for us this week. I'm super excited. I love it. And then I also got my little Zoom sampler here that I took, recorder, not sampler, my little Zoom recorder that I took with me to Bali and Thailand. And I didn't actually get a chance to use it much in Thailand, but I did use it in Bali. I stumbled into a cool street festival thing. It was they were welcoming the gods back into the temple, and it was really cool. And I took a lot of recordings from that. So we're going to take that and drop it into something probably today. Actually, I'm going to show you how to go through the steps of that, how to do that with your Zoom recorder. And since it uses SD cards, I've got like an SD card reader thing here that can read SD cards. That's that. And yeah, I'm going to take you through the steps on how to do that and how to bring that into our equipment. It's going to be fun. So that's what's up with our classes today. Let's go ahead and open up a folder on here. And we've got where are we? Teaching and notes. Let's see, sampling introduction. Yeah, it looks like it's cool. All right. There we go. And for the time being, I'm going to go ahead and keep that open on the side so you can see that on the side. So, all right. So, who can tell me what is a sampler? Now, here's the thing. This is an interesting distinction to make. So, these days we have our DAWs, our DAWs like Pro Tools, Ableton Live, Logic, FL Studio, all these different things, Cubase. And we can take those and we can drop loops into them and loop the loops and have it play for the whole song. And we can drop audio files into it and arrange them. Basically, how we used to have to do with samplers. So with thinking about this, you would think, well, doesn't that make a DAW basically a sampler? So what I want to know, and the question I pose to you is, what separates a DAW from a sampler? What is the difference between a DAW and a sampler? Why would we still need a sampler? And what is the definition of a sampler? And try to do it without using today's notes. The answer is in today's notes. It's in the first page. But try to do it without that. Time limit. No, using a previously recorded audio file. No, they both use previously recorded audio files. They both have time limits, although the time limit for a DAW would be huge, but actually the time limit for a software sampler is also pretty big now. Anyone else want to have a crack at the answer? Deveron. Cool, thanks for letting me know you're here, buddy. Anybody else want to have a crack at it? Those are good answers, but they're just not really the answer that I'm looking for. And while I'm doing this, I'm going to pull up a sampler up here. The sample carrier. No. Let's see. Wikipedia. The approach. With a DAW, you record multi-tracks. With a sampler, you're using pieces of the recorded audio for songwriting. Okay, we're getting closer. 16th note, not really. So RJ, you're getting closer. Oh, Yoshia, you're here. Cool, thanks. Justin from John's class? That's a question? Oh, that's an exclamation point. Justin, what is your last name, Justin? Justin? I'm going to put a question mark. Okay, so RJ, you're pretty close, and you're actually right. It's the approach, but what makes it the approach? So basically, a sampler. If we go look here, sampler, hardware. Let's see. Images. Let's take a look at samplers. So samplers all have something in common. They all have these pads or keys. All right? So they got these pads or keys or whatever. And that's where you assign the sampler from the sample from musical playback. You've been here, but you still haven't told me your last name, Jay. Justin. I guess it's Jay, but is it Carty? Okay. So yeah, so you're right, Lewis. You can assign the recordings to the pad or the keys. Okay. So that's the difference, is a sampler is where you record audio and assign it to pads or keys for musical playback. So once I assign a sample into something, I can play it back musically, all right? Does somebody want to tell me Justin's last name? Because otherwise I'm going to forget and it's going to be weird. I'm going to say Justin J. Is that right? Or is it J? Oh, the J is probably just his first name. Justin Carty? Justin Speak. Cool. John Macri, okay, cool. Okay, Justin Cash Carty, Justin Morgan. Justin Morgan, all right, thanks. Sweet. I don't know why he doesn't tell me. I guess he doesn't have audio. Thank you very much, Kilo. Thanks, John. All right, so, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. So you assign it to keys for playback. And this is how this is how sampling is done. So let's just take a look at this real quick. I'm just going to throw, let's do this. Oh, I don't have it. I don't have it connected right now. Right? Facts. All right, thanks, Justin. So what we're going to do is I'm going to grab a sample from something we played around with the other day. Let's just talk about let's see here. Let's go into, I don't have, hold on. Oh, I didn't have a few things are not set up. Boop, there we go. Cool. All right, so that should turn on in a second, hopefully. See what happens with that. But we recorded some stuff in, and let's go grab it. Let's see, under teaching, and we did the KMFDWA project, and recorded my vocal in here, Tony vocal. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab that, throw it in here. Boop. Why didn't it let me throw that in? Oh, it's because it's the ASD file. Cool. All right, so I got this here. Nice. And let's just listen to this real quick.
Up all night. What?
Yeah, there we go. Cool. All right, so I got that.
Up all night. What? Because I'm scared.
All right, so we got this.
People trying to come in to my bedroom, y'all.
All right, so thanks, RJ. Put that in the discussion a little bit later, because we're going to talk about definitely, in a second we're going to talk about the history of sampling. So when we get to that part, put a link to that album. All right, so I got this.
To my bedroom, y'all. To my bedroom, y'all.
Let's see what else we got over here. Right?
Because I'm scared.
So what I'm doing is I'm just going to find a part of this that I actually want to use as a sample, and I'm just going to demonstrate.
People trying to come in.
Right? Let's go here.
Up all night. What?
Okay, we'll use that. So up all night.
Up all night.
All right, cool. I got that. I'm going to go ahead and crop that. And don't worry, I'm going to show all this in super slow motion a little bit later on. So we got this here. Boom. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just drag this down here like that. And so now I've got this. And
up all night, up all night, up all night, up all night, up all night.
Cool. So
up all night, 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 up all night,
awesome. So I got that, but I can also play it back more like creatively.
up all night, up all night, up all night, up all up,
And I could change what the start position is.
ball night, ball night,
Okay.
ball
Or I could just grab the night.
night, 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 night.
Okay, cool. And so we could throw that into a song and mess around with it, right? I can record it in. Right. 4.
Night, 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 night,
Right? And basically, I'm just playing it back. And that's basically what you're doing with samples. You're just like grabbing parts of things that have been recorded or that you're recording in yourself, and you're playing them back using keys on a keyboard. And that's what the difference is between just taking this and then just having it in a loop, which I could do over here. I could just take this and warp this and move this around and just be like night, 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 whatever, you know. I can just take this. If I go down here, if we look down the bottom of my screen, and I can just, let's see here. Whoops. What did I do? Oh, that's what I did. So I can go to 0.1. And so now, like that. So I've got this here. And I can just hit play on this, and I've got a little. Right? So we can do all sorts of stuff. Linking Hearts says you can also change that setting, I'm sure. Which setting? Which one are you talking about? The answer is probably yes. But it's still... And you can do a lot of stuff, but we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Ableton Live a little bit later and like what all you can get into with Ableton Live. Ableton Live goes deep with sampling. But basically, that's the difference between a sampler and a DAW. DAWs, you can take samples and you can drop them in. You can do stuff to them, but you're not playing it back on a keyboard, not necessarily. So that's what a sampler does. Okay. So let's take a little bit of a step through, a little walk through the history of samplers. And let's see here. Sampler history. Oh goodness. Ha, that's so funny. Sampler instrument history. And Wikipedia has a pretty good Oh, is the key C? That's what you're responding to. Okay, is the key C? I can't see where the C is on the keyboard. The standard spot is in its OG pitch. Yes. So RJ, yeah, the key was C. Yep. But you can totally, and then you're right. Also, Linking Hearts, you can totally change that setting to so this the root note is a different key. So basically, in the beginning was the mellotron. The mellotron is the first kind of sampler instrument. Basically what a mellotron was, and you can see here's a little picture of a mellotron. It looks like a normal keyboard, but what was happening was inside of a mellotron, they had these, oh well, it's Arturia mellotron. Actually, I guess I could play the Arturia mellotron, but let me just show you a real mellotron in here. So the inside of the mellotron, basically what happened was, you had all of these tape reels in here, and the keys were connected to the tape reels, the reels on a tape. And it would play, oh goodness, and it would play, every time you hit the key, it would play the tape reel. So you could, like you said, RJ, Strawberry Fields. And So it's really, it was very limited because you were limited to 8 seconds of sample time per key. And so mostly what you had was like flute sounds and stuff like that. And if I go in here and I grab the Arturia's Mellotron, let's see here. No, wait. There we go. So if I grab this one and we play it a little bit here. This is what it sounds like. And it plays that long. So right, I don't know how to play Strawberry Fields, but basically it's something similar to that. But that's what mellotrons sound like, and they have lots of different types of sounds in here. So you can go in here and you can say, all right, let's grab stereo strings. You know, here's some string sounds, and this one's got layered sounds. I'm going to turn off the layers actually. Let's see if we can get just basic ones. They have, hold on, let's see. Vintage. Okay, so here's flutes. Right, and then choir sounds. And you can see if I play off the bottom of my screen, if I play off the bottom of my keyboard down here, we don't actually get any notes to play until I get to right here. Make that bigger here. So here, there's no sounds down here on these keys. And if I go up my octaves, up here, right, there's no notes up here. And that's because there just weren't that many keys on a mellotron. It only had like, what, 25 or 36 keys or something like that, just a couple of octaves. So there wasn't that much going on with it as far as like range goes. So when they make faithful reproductions of mellotrons these days, they try to kind of capture that. And there's a few different, there's not that many mellotron emulations out there on the market. IK Multimedia makes a really good one called Sampletron. I really like that one a lot. And then Arturia makes one. The Arturia one is a little bit more faithful. It has like good sounds. But if we look at the, let me see if I can even load up the IK Multimedia one. Let's see here. Sample Tank 4. I know I had troubles loading these in at some point, and I'm not sure if I ever fixed it or if I just gave up. Here we go, load instrument. Imported. I think I gave up. Let's see, mood, user, yeah. Yeah, at some point I started doing it and I gave up. I'll go back and fix it. Let me see, can I load Sample Tank 3 in? Sound content cannot be found. Okay, well, whatever. But I'll figure it out at some point, and I'll bring it in one day and show it to y'all. But yeah, you could do some. It's Sampletron's. What is it called? Yeah, Sampletron is actually really cool because they sampled a lot of really old mellotrons that like kind of broken and stuff, and a lot of different other instruments besides the mellotron. And so there's a lot of really cool sounds going on. So anyway, that's the original mellotron. There's a really funny YouTube video that I'm gonna drop in here as a link that you can watch later. Mellotron commercial. This one's hilarious. Stop. Can you hear that? No, you cannot hear that. So I'm just gonna drop it in here because you can't hear it. But this dude, it's funny. I love it. You should definitely go check it out at some point. It's a commercial from, when was it first published? I don't know when it was first published, but it's definitely like in the 50s, like the end of the 50s, early 60s, because that's when the mellotron came from. But so a lot of people have used the Mellotron over the years. It's got a really, really deep history. And they kind of stopped making them for a while, but they're making them again, or at least they were. They're expensive. They're around $4,000 for a new one, or at least they used to be. Again, I'm not sure if they're still making them. John, maybe you know if they're still making them or not. But they're the kind of thing where if you have a lot of like excess money and you're like a collector and you want to get something like this, then get it. But the upkeep on them is pretty difficult. So they're more of something that's fun to keep around, but as an actual useful instrument. I mean, they're great as a useful instrument, but the upkeep's going to be crazy. And because they're basically just playing back samples, if you don't really want the feel or the instrument itself, then just get some kind of sample library. $8,000. Wow, really? So they stopped making them? Because there was a company making them and they were $4,000, but that was, I think the last time I looked into it was probably at least 8 to 10 years ago. Wow, 8,000. Let's see if we can find one actually. I'm curious if we can find one, a real Mellotron for sale. So these ones here are not actual real Mellotrons. These are samplers. They're basically just playing back. Let's see. Yeah, we're not. You can get a scale model from Seattle. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Yep. Yeah, they're probably not making them new anymore. Anyway, so pretty cool stuff, but Mellotron Preservation Society, okay, wow, yeah. And that's in Seattle, huh? Interesting. So anyway, that's the kind of the grandfather of the sampler. Then you have the kind of first, I would say, what's the father of the sampler, which would be the Fairlight, CMI Fairlight. Let's take a look at this. Cool, thanks, John. So, oh, nice. Oh, cool. Yeah, please post a link to a really faithful version. Although our cherry one is really good. It's a really good faithful version. There was one. Post the link. I'm curious to see what link you're going to post because I remember. I don't know if you remember this, John, but like 2001 or 2002. Some company had all the samples from Mellotron, and they'd put them as an Akai instrument on a disc, and it was like $300 or something like that. But that was like old sample libraries in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s were always like $300, $400. I never got it. I always thought about getting it, and then I never got it. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the Fairlight CMI. So the Fairlight CMI. And CMI stands for Computer Musical Instrument. It was a digital synthesizer and sampler they started making it in 1979. And this is the first one that was really like our modern synths, our modern samplers. So I would say this is really like the kind of the father to our modern samplers that we have today. Whereas the modern samplers kind of start with the SP12 and stuff like that. The CMI was kind of right before. And the reason why I'm not just calling it a normal sampler is because it did a little bit more than just normal sampling. It also did synthesis, and also you could kind of make your own waveforms on it and draw stuff into the screen. It was really cool, and it did a lot of extra stuff. They were also super expensive. They started like around $20,000 or $25,000 or more. Even, I mean, they were very expensive, and very few people actually had them to mess with. Like some schools had them, and some studios had them, and then some famous people like Herbie Hancock had them. But Michael Jackson had access to one. But not that many people actually had them because they were just so expensive. Some famous songs like Art of Noise. If y'all know who Art of Noise is. They used them in their early productions. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, let's see, famous Fairlight CMI songs. I know the intro, I thought the intro to Beat It, not Beat It, sorry. Billie Jean, maybe. No, Beat It was a Fairlight CMI. Here, I'll make it bigger. Yep, there you go. Cool, here we go. Wait, let's click on this YouTube link that John's giving us. Yeah, the M-Tron Pro. Yep. Yeah, GeForce. Huh. Yeah. They're still making them. Nice. Yeah. I had, like, back in the day, I worked with some guys who had this, so I had access to it, but I never actually owned it. But I didn't know they were still making it. GeForce. Ableton. Here we go. 129. Cool. Yeah, that's pretty neat. That'd be fun to have. Oh, they're still making all these? They're still making these? I didn't know GeForce was still a thing. Cool. All right. Well, anyway, we'll come back to that page. Thanks, John. So, some songs from the Fairlight CMI. Oh, cool. Yeah. Oh man, maybe I'll have to look into getting that. 'Cause I love Mellotron stuff. It's so neat. It's so neat. Let's see. They have a good comprehensive list of stuff. Ooh, Nord has a little history page up on Fairlight. That's interesting. Oh, because they're talking about the Nord sample library. Cool. So again, there's some really cool YouTube videos about using the Fairlight, and also Arturia makes a cool reproduction of the Fairlight. The CMI-V. The Fairlight songs, yeah. I mean, there were some songs in here. There's a list of songs in here I found. I kind of stumbled across, and it talks about a bunch of songs that I'm not really that familiar with, to be honest. But like here's some ones that talk about Mr. Big, Ice House, Keep Me in the Dark. Some of these are later. SPK, Machine Age Voodoo. I was looking for some earlier songs. Like I thought that song, Oh Yeah. Bulb. Yeah, right. It is Beat It. Okay, yeah, the opening chord of the song. That's what I thought. Thanks, John. Yeah, the opening song, the opening chord of Beat It is a Fairlight. Yep, and I think it's actually in here. If we go in here to this one, to this library in here, vintage. Let's see. This has the original discs. This is pretty cool. If I zoom in on my screen here, VC from the original CMI disc, so you can actually like. I mean, and these sounds are like totally cheesy. No, the Seinfeld's theme song was actually the Korg M1, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, it sounds like an M1. Let's see here. Oh, drum sounds. Asian percussion sounds. Let's see. Any good ones in here? No. Ecstasy. Skylarking has cricket sample on CMI. Huh. Nice. So organ sounds. I mean, there's all these like sounds in here. And I know that the The intro to Beat It is in here as well in the Arturia, which is it's kind of funny. I stumbled across it one day. I don't know where it is in here exactly. But yeah, there's stuff. So the CMI it's cool. You can do some neat stuff with it, but of course samplers came a long way since then. Of Summer's Cauldron, I don't know that one. I don't know Summer's Cauldron. Find it for me and I'll play it back. Ecstasy. That is a blast from the past. That is so funny. So when we're talking about samplers, who can think of a reason why samplers would be so expensive? Why is it that something like the Fairlight CMI in 1979 when it first came out would cost so much money? Now, obviously, there's a lot more going on than just sampling with that thing. But why would a sampler cost so much money back in the day? And we're talking like 70s and like late 70s and early 80s. Yeah, it was new tech, okay? Handmade, maybe. I mean, maybe, but I mean, they're all made with chips and stuff like that. So why weren't they cheaper? What would be super expensive back in the 80s that would be a lot cheaper now? And it was new tech, yes, but there's specific parts of it that would make it really, really expensive. And while y'all are thinking about that, I'm going to take another drink of water. RJ, you're absolutely correct. The data storage and the chips, but the data storage. Samplers use RAM. They use RAM to store their data. And RAM has traditionally been super, super, super expensive. It's only been in the past, let's say, I don't know, 15 years or so, 10 to 15 years, that it's started to really drop in price a lot. I mean, it's, historically, it's dropped in price. But nowadays, like what, I've got a Mac Mini and I've got 32 gigabytes of RAM in that Mac Mini, and that probably costs, because I put it in myself, I think it cost me like maybe $150 or less. I don't think I spent that much money, maybe $200. But it was like 32 gigabytes of RAM for that low cost is insane. Your phone, like the Samsung phones now have 6 gigs of RAM or 8 gigs of RAM or something like that. And it's so cheap. Cool. Hold on, I'm just gonna click on this link from John. And cool, we'll play that later. That's awesome, yeah. But so the RAM has just dropped in price. Let's see, cost of RAM. History. Let's see, there's got to be here we go. Oh, there's got to be a graph, like a chart. Is there a chart? I would love to see a chart. Oh, here we go, images. That's 2007. This is all modern stuff. Oh, how? Because I'm clicking a button. I'm clicking a button. I'm making it big and small. I have control over everything. All right, let's take a look at this. So bits per dollar. Here we go. All right. Yeah, I don't know. The computer's playing tricks with you, Zaint. All right, so back in the 50s, we had the vacuum tube. And the bits per dollar in the year $2,000. Okay, so year 2000. And this one only goes up to 2005. But here we have 1950s. And then up, let's go to the 80s, right? So here's the bits per dollar is right here around 10 squared. So what is that in normal person talk. Here we go. So in 1980, 774 bits, and 1 megabyte is 1,000 bits, I think. RJ, can you help me with this? I feel like you might know. But, so basically, 1 megabyte, that can't be right though. It's probably 1,000,000 bits or something like that. So anyway, you can see these numbers here. Yeah, we're getting into a territory which I don't know. Let's, you know what? I think so too, but let's not, you know what? Let's forget about it. Anyway, I don't want to get too trapped on a side tangent here, but it's very, very, yeah, not enough for coffee math right now. Not enough coffee for math. Yeah, exactly. It's stuff is super, super cheap now compared to what it used to be. So that's why these things were super expensive back in the day. And after we're done with this history, we're going to take a quick break. But so after the Fairlight CMI, which was, like I said, $25,000 up to $30,000, somewhere in that price range, then we had the SP12 sampler. The SP12 is early 1980s. And let's see here. 76, 79, the 80s here. Boop, boop, boop. Oh, I didn't even know about the LMD. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so EMU. Okay, here we go. EMU emulator. Yep. And the SP12 and these guys here. SP12. So this is what this one looked like. And the emulators and stuff like that were kind of similar looking. Here we can see this over here. There you go. That's what that one looked like. That's the SP12 and the EMU. And these are all from EMU emulator. And this is a keyboard sampler, basically a very similar type of machine. And these were finally, oh right, oh yeah, you have the, oh wow, you have a Lin 9000. You still have it, John? That's pretty cool. Yeah, and then you have the SP1200 eventually after the SP12. But these here were finally under $10,000. This is where you start to get down to where normal humans could start to afford things. Wow, that's pretty cool. So this is these are the oldest, like the old machines here, and the Lin was like, yeah, that's the Lin 9000 is the drum machine, right? Yeah, this old drum machine. And this is like, you know, if you ever listen to any Prince records or anything like that, and like all the records from like the 80s was all like the Lin drums stuff all over it. 5,000 back in the day. Okay, so that's what it was, and it was had 4 seconds, right? And if you go to Vintage Synth Explorer, vintagesynth.com, you can find a lot of stuff about these. So for example, if you go here to the right hand corner, you can research about these, and it has all these interesting details about things. For example, it'll have like SP12 and the SP12 here on Vintage Synth Explorer. Boop. Has some really cool data. It tells you over here on the right hand side when it was produced, how much polyphony it had, the sample rates, the bit depth, all that stuff, and then how much memory it had. So you can see here, for example, this one here, which was they started making in 1985, which is the SP1200 or the SP12. It had 48 kilobytes of memory for 1.2 seconds, but you could expand it up to 5 seconds. That's not much sample time, and yeah, so many artists use the Lin, and that's not much sample time. It's pretty insane how little sample time that is compared to like what we can do these days. And we're going to talk about all that stuff. So that's like that one there. If we do a search for the MPC, 60, the original MPC. Boop, down here. And you can see this one actually has Roger Lynn's autograph on it, his signature on it, because he designed it with Akai. And if we look over here, this here, it says the polyphony was 16 voices. It was 12-bit, 40 kilohertz. And you had 13 seconds, and you could expand it to 26 seconds of sample time. So you could have 32 drum sounds in here like that. You could had a sequencer and all that stuff. So this one here was produced in 1988. So it came out 3 years after the SP12. So yeah, the MPC is pretty dope. If you listen to like NWA and stuff, if you follow Dr. Dre and you watch that, if you watch that movie Straight Outta Compton, actually, you can see in the one scene where they're showing them in the studio, you can see actually he has an SP12 in that scene, which is pretty dope. NI's Machine MK3 does you justice. Yes, but it's a different beast. It's very similar, but it's a different beast. All right. So after the SP12 and the MPCs, then we started getting into like the Akai S1000, and these were like rack mount units. So the thing is with the MPCs, they had a sequencer built into them. So you could actually use that one machine for all your beats, and it had sampling and stuff like that, and you could do everything right there in one machine. The S1000 was something that you integrated into a studio. You had to use it with an external sequencer. So this is what a lot of like studio people had that were doing more like film scores and stuff like that, and they needed like different, like it wasn't like beat makers so much. It was more people doing other types of music. And the S1000 was also a very, very famous one. There's a keyboard version of it. And this was made for many, many years, actually. They started making this one in 1988. You can see down here in the corner. And they made that until 1993. And this is, and then you also had around this time, Akai was one of the big companies, and also EMU. What was it? Here, let's just do a search for EMU samplers. The ESI emulator, SP1200. The emulators here, these ones here. The emulator series, hold on, let's see. Emulator 4, emulator 3. I'm trying to remember which one I was gonna get. I had, oh, here we go, the ESI 4000, these ones. Is it this? Yeah, 98 to 2000. So this one here was one that I almost got. Instead, I actually got the Akai S5000. But you can see the specs on this thing, 64 voice of polyphony. And what that means, polyphony, it means how many notes you can hold down at the same time. So here. Polyphony is the number of voices a device can produce simultaneously. So basically, it kind of translates roughly into how many keys you can hold down. That's not exactly right, but it's basically roughly what it does. But these were pretty cool machines. And the thing that was famous about the EMUs was their filter was really, really famous. Their filter was great, and their onboard effects were pretty good. A lot of drum and bass guys used them. A lot of techno guys used them as well in Europe. Not so much in America, but in Europe. And they still have, the filter in them is very, very good. But I actually went with, instead of this one here, I went with an S5000. And they had 4 megabytes of memory, which you could expand to 128 megabytes of memory. And same thing with my S5000. You could expand that up as well. So the most I could get, though, was 128 megabytes. And that cost me, in 98 or 99, around $300 for 128 megabytes, which is pretty insane. It's a lot. All right, so that's that. And then after that, really what started to happen, because they produced this one until the early 2000s, and EMU, now I'm pretty sure they're out of business. They were making controllers for a while. They tried to hold on. but the software eventually killed the company, and now they're not really making stuff anymore. They weren't able to hold on to their money. So other companies were able to make the transition. Akai made the transition. Of course, Roland was making a bunch of other stuff. Who else is making samplers? Like Yamaha made some samplers, but they're not super famous. The Roland ones were pretty famous, and they're still making samplers today. Akai is back to making samplers again, and their samplers are pretty famous. But yeah, Emu, nope, didn't make it through, as far as I remember. I haven't seen their stuff for a while. So what happened was everything went into the box, and what I mean by that is it went into the computer, and we started dealing with software samplers. So that's what we're mostly going to be talking about in this class, is software samplers. And let's take a break, and we're going to come back and look at, just kind of take a glimpse at what like different software samplers there are out there today. Okay, so let's do 10 minutes. Let's be back at 3:13. Let's be back at 3:13, and yeah, we're going to continue talking about software samplers. Cool. Yes, the Akai MPC is a sampler. Yes, absolutely. Yep. All right, we'll be back.